Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to call to order the June 13th, 2024 meeting of the Board of Directors of the Plain Regional Air Protection Agency. Can we call the roll, please?
Chair Saxon,
Here.
Vice Chair Lovall.
Here.
Director Cutchin,
Here.
Director Fleck,
Here.
Director Hensley, Director Keating.
His hands
I think he's online, but oh, yes, he was an attendee. All right, Matt, thanks, Matt.
Director Plummer
Here.
and Director Pishneri is excused.
Okay, let the record reflect we do have a quorum. First item on the agenda is adjustments to the agenda. Does anyone have any changes that they'd like to make? Hearing none, public participation. Time is limited 3 minutes per speaker. So I'll now recognize any members of the public that would like to comment on today's agenda. Is there anyone online? No one online and no one in attendance. Comments on a topic not included on today's agenda. Is there anyone online or in the audience? None. So no public comment today. Next item is comments from the board. Any board member have any comments today? Hearing none, so I'm working on it.
You're doing good so far. You're 10 minutes ahead already. Good job. All right, keep it brief.
Next item on the agenda is the consent calendar consisting of 2 items: approval of minutes from the May 9th, 2024 meeting, and approval of financial reports from March and April of 2024.
Move to approve the consent agenda.
There's a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mike. Is there any comments or discussion on the consent agenda?
Yeah, quick question. I'm looking at our 2 different financials. Both of them are showing us, a significant deficit. I'm assuming that's the capital expenditures for the project?
It's actually more related to the revenue on the general fund. We were behind on invoicing some grants and I got all of those caught up in the month of May. So when we see these reports for May, you'll see that all caught up. So we had almost $300,000 that we needed to invoice that hadn't been invoiced. So it's looking much better now.
Okay, thank you.
I would add, and speaks to the process and really express my appreciation to Christina, who jumped in and basically took an assessment of, okay, where are things at in sort of the interim space? Where are my needs most immediately helpful? She recognized that. So then as she was talking to Howard just a few minutes ago, kind of went through the process of, okay, is it a mistake in the system or have we just not asked for it yet? Or we haven't asked for it? Okay, what are the confines of the ask and understanding those before making them? So it was a
Yeah.
due diligence and.
I definitely had to learn the grant before I was feeling comfortable with asking for the reimbursements. So, yeah.
And just one other comment, the financial report show the revenue deficit and
So that's
the
what we were
court
talking about.
for the meeting, Christina laid that we just received those monies state
In May.
in May, so those will also be reflected. So, perfect.
Thank you.
Any other comments, discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of approving the consent agenda, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, our panelists, all say aye. So, thank you. We have a public hearing scheduled for 12:30, but I think we need to wait until 12:30.
Yeah.
Before we start that. So maybe Jim, would you like to give the Citizen Advisory Committee?
Sure.
Thank you.
So for May, we wrapped up our sort of rethinking and revamped of our interview process. So we came up with some questions that would be kind of give us a jump start on the interviews. And that was a wrap for that issue. And we just barely dipped our toes into going over the goal revisions. And we'll be digging into that this month.
Great.
Okay. All right, well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
If I could, Howard, just offer that I do see the CAC's engagement on the board goals as an opportunity to provide some perspective and some advisement, and their role as a diverse set of stakeholders to provide some of that advisement to the board, I think would be really helpful and useful. So
And on that note, later on the agenda, we'll talk about a work session that we may have. And I would suggest that, we might invite Jim, as chair of the CSC, to participate in that effort. So, okay, thanks again, Jim. We're still ahead of schedule, so we can talk about the capital improvement project.
Sure. Get part done with here. So, there's probably not a lot of major changes since the last time we met, but we did have the bids are, the project is out for bid. We had, about 24 people show up last week to do a mandatory walkthrough. 11 of them were general contractors, so that kind of eased some of our anxiety that we weren't gonna have people come look at things. So I think our architect thought maybe 3 to 5 would actually bid probably with that many showing up.
wow.
So the they're in the middle of the bid process today. We'll kind of we have a final addendum to make some changes to the bid and some corrections. Most of them are just corrections to typos and misunderstandings in there. And then June 18th, next Tuesday, is when the bids are due at 2:02 p.m. And then we'll have an official bid opening that people can watch. I guess that's required, or some sort of that is required. And then they have a couple hours to make any adjustments
The bid bonds.
or put in, give their bid bonds, put their bid bonds in and potentially pull their bid. I guess there's some, this is new to us, but one of the loopholes that there is that their list of subcontractors is required if they want to have the bid. And so what they'll do is if they might not have all their bids in for their subcontractors, so they have that extra 2 hours to get them in. Generally, they do have them all in, but that 2 hours gives them to go, an ability to go, oh, we're the low bidder and we forgot something, so they just don't submit the subcontractors and their bid isn't eligible. So it's kind of an out for them if they bid too low. And so, see, it sounds like generally none of them submit their subcontractors so that they have that out. So we'll know more on June 18th, and then we'll have that till the next board meeting to kind of look things over, approve those. Look at the bids, obviously the low bid is important, but also make sure that they have the ability to complete a project like this. The list of general contractors, it looks like they're all have done projects like this, so that shouldn't be an issue, but we want to make sure that we do our due diligence and looking at that, and then giving the board an option to look at that, the bid we select also.
And to make the final selection.
Yeah. Mhm.
And thanks, Lance. I'll add an offer that both Lance and I have been engaged with Blake on this process to make sure we really understand it. And our bid review approach is first to check that all the boxes asked for are checked. And then the second check is can they demonstrated capacity or ability to do the work that we're asking of them? And then once those two things are concluded, the remainder of them, it's essentially the lowest bid and it gets it. And that's the process that we've been involved with Blake on helping us understand what the good effective approach is. And that bid is the one that we bring to the board for the July meeting for review and consideration.
Maybe just a couple other things. I think we're pretty close to having an agreement with Lane County and the Lane County Service Building downtown to use some space in their garden level basement.
Yeah.
And so that's looking promising, very low cost for us, and it'll be beneficial to them to have some space filled, but more for us to have a place for staff to work and for us to work out of during the remodel. And then there's some other, things that go along with that are on the staff report about mail and stuff. We've kind of figured out those things and trying to make sure that the public still has access to us and can get in contact with us while we're not in this location.
And David, I'll offer that I'm very appreciative to Steve Adams because the recognizing that Lane County has a space that El Rapa could take advantage of during this period came from a conversation with him. And he was very forward thinking and saying El Rapa is a valued partner and how can Lane County be a good supportive partner? And through that conversation, this was alignment, we're exploring it. So
Yeah.
I just want to appreciate that.
Good. David Ward and Lauren worked hard on that too. So yeah, it was a good deal.
Yeah, thank you very
It's a
much.
great deal for you.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
great
We're
deal.
very appreciative. Yeah.
Travis, you anticipate it being like a common workspace where anyone can show up and there's a place that they can plug in and
Yes,
do their thing.
one of the initial plans or thoughts was at the outset, the idea being COVID sort of showed us that we can work from home to a large degree and get work accomplished. One of the challenging components of COVID, though, is we still had the office space, and we did have staff. Robbie and Colleen were very notable in still being here and kind of doing a lot of the needed in-person work of keeping information flowing. And that is one difference of we can just work from COVID that doesn't quite fit with our current situation needs. So the second thought was, well, maybe we can find a small place where we could potentially go. We're renting a space for Airmetrics when they were in operations. We're still holding on to that as a potential storage opportunity. But another place we considered was LCOG. They have some space available to us. It's smaller in the sense that we wouldn't be able to bring the entire staff to there if they so chose. Then understood that there's a potential opportunity for some alignment with Lane County at the Lane County Service Building. That's a broader space that fits some of our storage needs, which once that agreement is really set and established, we can stop renting out the Airmetrics space, save that storage space by using this area. And it does present an opportunity for anybody who, I think that we're still open to those in this temporary setup if they have the ability to and interest in working from home, still embracing that, but not a requirement. Instead, we do have a communal place where people can come, where there's enough seating, essentially workstations for everybody if we all wanted to work in the office to exist.
Have
So
a meeting room over there?
yes.
Good.
Mhm.
Good.
Other comments?
Just, I really appreciate the level of detail in this report. This is something that I've really, hoped we could improve upon. I really appreciate it because, for me, being the guy who kind of is a dollar and cents guy, I really appreciate, a little more detail. Most other folks can kind of just, glance over it. I really appreciate that.
We thank Travis mostly for that. He and ChatGPT.
About plot.
Yeah. So, but yeah, they're appreciate that recognition for sure.
Thank you.
I have a question as far as the request for bid. Did it have a time schedule? And are there provision for liquidated damages if the contractor goes past that deadline?
I don't think there were any penalties. There was not predicted, but a estimated timeline of 6 months.
Okay.
And so, but there's nothing in the contract that, at least the way it sits right now, unsigned for penalties for that kind of stuff.
Are the bidders, they're required to submit a construction schedule?
I believe that's in there, yes. Yeah, that is part of the bid. They have to
Okay.
submit it.
So
I
that'd be
don't know if
part-
there's an actual start date in there, but the schedule, yeah.
that'd be part of the evaluation.
Yeah, right. Yeah, obviously somebody can't start till next February, that.
Yeah, that's a problem.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and that is a component of the time. The timeline for us is still in flux in the sense that the winning bid may be August, we can start, so that gives us through July. Or they can start right after the board says, yes, we like this, assuming the board, assumes that it's approvable. So that is a component that will be considered and has still leaves some ambiguity to the current timeline.
I'm sure there's somebody telling me here.
Yeah,
Materials and stuff like
Right.
that, so.
And I'm assuming there's an appeal period as well and all of the fun stuff that goes along with public contracting.
Perhaps, but that would be a level deeper than my knowledge currently has me at.
Well, it'd be set up in your timeline. So typically, there's, after you make a decision, there's an appeal, or say you, find one of the applicants non-responsive, there's an appeal process that has to be involved in that. And usually there's a,
Or someone can file a protest.
yeah, there
Yeah.
is, that's in
Yeah.
the.
Okay.
That's in. the
Yeah.
language.
That's pretty typical.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Oh, I think we've got to 12:30.
Almost.
Yeah, that will-
Well, thank you, Lance. It's a good report.
Thanks, Lance.
Yeah.
And before you leave today, you can, we mentioned earlier, there was
Yeah, there's.
the plan view, I guess, or schematic of what the layout would look like.
And notably some materials too on the, there, what.
And everyone's picked out their office, so I'm just.
Around a few times.
Yeah, there's some,
Continue to move on.
I will just broadly kind of speak that what I'm really hopeful for in this remodel is, for one, is it will be just a change of the visual physical space and work environment. And I think as ORAPA currently at a place where we're very much mid-transition from the old to the new, I think that this will be a great way to really emphasize and make that more of a clean break. And what I'm wanting to build or to create is a place that the sense and the vibe of the organization of the office space really hits to this idea of environmental protection, of air quality. I pointed this out at the all staff meeting because I love it and I'm super proud of it, but if you wander back that way, there's a couple new art pieces that I put up, particularly one on the way back to the bathroom, that kind of just hits from my emotional center. I'm like, yes, this is what ORAPA should be. And so if you happen to go back there, it's on your left-hand side, just take a look at that art. And that's kind of the essence of what I'm hoping our new office will kind of feel and be like on the other side of it.
I was kind of curious to see maybe if you did an AI speak and got some unique art, because you were all AI the other day.
I am, and I continue to be, and it's, we all will eventually.
Yeah.
Matt or Dylan, do you have any comments or questions? Go ahead, Matt. You're silenced.
I do, thank you, and apologies for not being there live in person. I'm suffering allergies, and you wouldn't want me around the table sneezing my head off. So awesome to hear that we'll be temporarily housed under the Lane County roof. Thanks to those who made that happen. But speaking of Lane County, they have a robust community benefits agreement, and I wonder if there's an opportunity when we're considering our contractors to look at things that might not be quantitative, but maybe a little more qualitative. Do they have a local workforce predominantly? Do they use locally sourced sustainable goods? Are there subcontractors? Are they partnering regularly with traditionally underrepresented or minority owned businesses? I would submit that there's rather than reinventing the wheel, there are entities in this in our region that have strong community benefits agreements. In particular, Lane Community College passed one in 2019 that I helped co-author. Lane County has one that I also believe was passed in 2018 or 2019, or as recently as 2021. Nevertheless, I would ask those who are considering contractors to look toward existing community benefits agreements and seeing if there are boxes that can be checked before this board approves a final contractor. Appreciate that. Thanks.
Thanks, Matt. And we're envious where you are, and we're indoors on a nice day. So.
And I was actually, Matt just took the words out of my mouth. I was going to ask if we had any kind of labor standards or community benefit agreement in place to ensure that, that there are significant benefits to the whole community as we plan to use public funds in this project.
I guess you can get back to us on that.
Yeah, I think that's we could make that part of the bid scoring process and make sure that that's looked at, and also look into those agreements, there's entities.
Doesn't the ORS have their own standards? I mean,
And I think you'd have to have it in the bid already. I mean, you're actually supposed to have your scoring process and all of that in your RFP. So I don't know that you could change it once the RFP's already been out.
The bid addendum is today to be published essentially on that.
okay.
I think that as I've worked with Blake on this process and going through that, he's outlined it for me as really it's the meeting the qualifications that are set, and those qualifications being, did you turn everything in? Can you meet the work, or can you do the work that you're saying? And then essentially that lower bid. But I think that to Matt and Dylan's point is it is important and vital that as an environmental organization, we are thinking about some of those community benefits and the resources that we are allocating. And I think that as we move forward on projects that will continue to be important, one of the things that I want to be a change from what currently is existing is we have an EV charger out front. And our EV charger is non-accessible to the public. Historically, we had this charger that was available at no cost, and it was very minimal cost to the organization, people to utilize it. Those cords were cut in December of 2022, and we have not replaced them as of yet, but through this, returning some of those kind of to Dylan and Matt's point, public goods and public efforts that could be benefited from. But to your point, Mike, that the process as in or in motion is that assessment of, did they turn everything in? Can they do the work? And then what's the most affordable prospect?
And I just think there is guidance in the ORS procurement
Right.
rules that we have to follow that would talk to equal opportunity and all that, and all those other things, social norms. So,
Yeah, thanks, Al. Thanks, Brian.
Well, it'd be in the OMB circulars as well for the federal.
mhm.
Anything else?
Matt's got his hand up.
Oh, go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, ever so briefly at the state level, yes, there are public procurement pieces already in place. Senator Manning helped strengthen that when he passed Senate Bill 420 in 2019. So there's yet another statewide community benefits agreement that exists that I would invite those who are considering contractors to look at as well. So there's the LCC, CBA or PLA, Project Labor Agreement, Lane counties, and the state of Oregon's Senate Bill 420 passed in 2019. Really appreciate the opportunity to have the conversation, and thanks for the consideration.
Matt.
Thank you. Okay.
And
yeah.
would it be all right if I just made one quick comment? Yeah, I absolutely don't want to tie up something that's been in the works for so long, but maybe there's like a forward-looking conversation we could have in the future about like establishing something to maybe meet LCC's CBA or another one that Matt mentioned, so that in the future, before we get started on a project, that this is kind of top of mind, that we're not just meeting some statewide standards, but we're actually, helping to lead and following kind of some of our local partners and setting a really strong example.
Great. Anything else on this subject? Okay, well, all good comments. And, thank you, Lance. All right, we'll now move to agenda item number 6. In accordance with Oregon local budget law, LRAP is required to hold a public hearing on its proposed budget prior to adoption. The proposed fiscal year FY 24-25 budget has been reviewed and approved by the LRAP Budget Committee and is now ready for public comment and adoption. I'd like to welcome everybody. We are going to hold a public hearing on this. But first, before we open the public hearing, I asked staff provide a brief overview of the proposed budget. So, Christina and Travis.
Yes, in your board packets, there was the pre-prepared resolution, and on that is a summary of the budget. And so do we have that to put up on the screen?
I think based on that as a Teams, if you go into Teams here, Heather.
I have it.
Oh, you got it. Oh, awesome.
Yeah, I just
Okay.
gotta share
Perfect,
it.
that's it.
Whoops, I better. Let me share it first.
The one on the bottom there.
The green area.
And hit the share button. You're on that.
We can see everything except for the numbers.
Going crazy on me.
You're good.
Okay.
Sorry, we're having a little bit of technical
You
difficulties.
just need to get.
We're really close.
It's in team, on the team.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
I see. Okay, let's do this. Let's download this. Open it.
It's getting there. Oh, boy. Okay, second choice here. We'll do.
Well, you can move the little.
There we go.
area.
There we go.
Okay. Yay.
I was gonna say you could move the screen of who's up there, but that works too. Okay, so just to review, the total of all the appropriations, including the contingencies, is 8.2 million. Without the contingencies, it's 7.9 million. You can see that 4.6 of that is in the general fund. And of that, we've got a total capital outlay projects totaling 1.4 million. And as you'll remember, not all of that is related to the construction and the remodel. My memory serves me right, is 1.2 something million is for the remodel and construction project. And then Title 5 is under special revenue fund that is 600,000. And then the grant funds, those are dollars in, dollars out. So those total about 3 million. The Aerometrics Enterprise Fund is listed, but as you can see, that's at zero in, zero out because we closed Aerometrics, but we need to keep that kind of in our reflection for, what did you say?
3 years.
3 years. So that's the sort of high level overview of the budget. Does anybody have any questions regarding that? Okay.
Okay, thank you for that overview. I'd like to now open a public hearing on the proposed FY 24-25 budget. The time is 12:42. And so the public hearing is now commenced. First off, I'd like to ask staff to confirm that public notice was published of the hearing. And there's evidence in the board packet of that.
Yes, the LB1 form is attached in your board packet and it was published May 24th, I believe. Yes, that was May 24th. The next form in is what that LB1 actually was. And then the next page in, unfortunately, the way that the paper cropped it off, but you see an LB1 here. That's not our LB1, but it actually was lower than that. It just, oh, here you go. Mike sees it there. That's the LB1.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
We also chose to publish it on our website as well, just as a second, so many people don't read the paper anymore, so.
Right. Okay, well, the affidavit is included in the records, so thank you. We will now take public testimony on the proposed budget. If you wish to provide comment, please come forward to the microphone or raise your hand virtually on the Zoom meeting. State your name and address for the record and limit your testimony to 3 minutes. First of all, are there any members of the public on Zoom? Okay, we have none on Zoom. And are there any members of the public in attendance? See none. So since there's no public testimony on the proposed FY 24-25 budget, I will now close the public hearing. And note that the time is 12:44. So the public hearing is now closed. I'll now open up for board discussion on the proposed budget. Are there any questions by the board on the proposed budget?
Just want to confirm, I don't remember, I don't believe there were any changes in the budget from the budget committee.
No.
Right, thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? Any comments or questions? Okay, seeing none. I guess read here, before we proceed with budget adoption, we must determine if there are any comments received that were substantive either at this meeting or were there any written comments received?
We received no written comments or oral comments today.
Okay. And so seeing that there were no comments, I guess we will proceed now. Staff recommends either well, that we hold a public hearing, which we did. And so there's suggested motions are either to adopt the budget or direct staff to provide response to comments, et cetera. So I guess I would entertain a motion at this time to adopt the FY 24-25 budget. There is a draft resolution number 24-04.
Chair, I'm ready to make a motion.
Recognize Mr. Lovell.
I'd like to move adoption of the fiscal year 24-25 budget for the El Rapa organization as per resolution 24-04.
Second. Second by Director Fleck. Any further discussion, comments? If not, your roll call vote, please.
Sure. Chair Saxon,
Aye.
Chair Lovell, or Vice Chair Lovell, Director Kitchen,
Aye.
Director Fleck,
Hi,
Director Keating,
Aye.
Director Johnston,
Aye.
Director Plummer.
Aye.
Okay, the vote was unanimous by directors in attendance, so the proposed budget is adopted. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you to staff, Christina and Travis and Colleen and all the staff that worked on the budget. So I thought it went very smoothly this year. So I thought the level of information and response to comments were excellent. So appreciate that.
Yeah, I would like to express some appreciation to Susanna, as Raja does not hear. She kind of set the groundwork for some of the budget. The budget that we are living in this year, I think could be called the Susanna budget almost, but she really gave us the first few steps. Christina and I did a lot of work in kind of bringing it to conclusion, but she did lay the framework for us.
She did.
Thank you. Moving on, next item is agenda item 10, executive director job description. Travis?
Yes, so let me get to that here. So this item came from the executive session and discussion that the board had in the May board meeting following my appointment. That wanted to have a review of the director job description with some additions that included more of Exhibit A from the contract that the board approved that incorporates some of those goals set out there into the position description, as well as providing more language and emphasis on the executive director implements the policy which is set by the board and speaks to the policy that is set by the board. And so as an attachment to the staff item is that job description with the red line edits for your review. And upon approval or additional changes, we can incorporate those changes and then approval of that job description by the board.
Okay, before we discuss, is there a motion to approve?
oh, so moved.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Been moved and seconded. I'd like to open the floor now to discussion. Go ahead, Mike.
I'm sorry, I couldn't resist. So what are we occasionally grasping under physical requirements? I
think shirt collars of directors.
I'm assuming that this has already been in there.
Yes.
I don't remember it and I found it quite amusing.
I thought so too. I was wondering, what is this?
It's not people.
I'm glad there's no crawling.
I didn't see groveling.
Yeah. Synonym, same word.
Funny. I think this looks great. I think it really captures all of what we talked about.
And I would add that, I guess this is kind of a living document, so as time goes on, if we need to add things, we certainly can do that.
I'll add that I agree with that. One of the assisting efforts that I've had here is Lori Kivith, who is a professional coaching consultant. She has been in our office here 2 days a week to help myself, especially come to a better understanding of the role and responsibilities and the acumen that I need to be holding myself to or behaving under. And her guidance is that job description should always be reviewed, reflected upon, and updated on kind of an ongoing basis. So to your point, Howard, very much so, yeah.
Are there any other comments, questions? Okay, well, hearing none, motion to approve the executive director's job description. It's been moved and seconded, so I'll call for the vote. We can just do a roll call. So all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, unanimous. Thank you for preparing this and also responding to some of our discussion. Next item on the agenda is an update of the employee handbook. Travis?
Yes, so this is another item that I worked closely with Blake on. He was the spearhead of a number of different items on this. Much of it is driven driven by changes the Oregon legislature made to our Oregon paid leave and how that intersects with Oregon paid OPLA. And so in our handbook, defining terms a little bit more clearly to align with changes that are effective July 1. Other additions that are in there beyond those is section 1.1 is an item from the director. The old one in there was language that was written by Steve Dietrich, and I had a desire to update that to something that speaks a little bit more to my own philosophy, which I did. Section in 6.6 sick leave usage, there is an addition as well, which clarifies how that sick leave usage can be done, which provides more opportunity or flexibility for sick leave to be used beyond just that sick leave. And then an addition that was actually identified this morning that I would like to bring to the board for consideration, and if there's an item we kick down the road to another time, I think that is okay as well, but our handbook currently states that on our employee incurred expenses and reimbursements, particularly for using one's own vehicle for usage, we do not reimburse mileage if employees choose to use their own vehicle. And the desire speaks more to the culture that LRAPA has is we follow the GSA rates, which is 21 cents per mile if a fleet vehicle is available, up to the full standard rate of that 67 cents per mile if a fleet vehicle is not available. And so this is the flexibility that I'm hoping the board can be in agreement to, and something that, while not included in the edits here because it was only recognized to us this morning during an all-staff meeting actually, to consider also approving in the changes today.
What we would recommend is just to strike that sentence completely, and have our policy follow the GSA rules on it. The 21 cents, if there is a vehicle available and you still choose your own, only 21 cents is reimbursed. Which is kind of the practice we've been going by even before I got here. I think that statement, how it was added to the last revision was just incorrect and not corrected, and somehow it just got in there incorrect, because that's been sort of the practice around here.
And the word or the sentence in section 4.3 of the handbook that would be strike would be, quote, for mileage, LRAPA will not reimburse mileage if you are offered an LRAPA vehicle but choose to drive your own. And that would be replaced with, for mileage, LRAPA will reimburse following GSA rates.
Does that cover though if the vehicle is not available, going with the federal?
Yeah, it's all outlined on their website if there's an event.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay, so just by referencing that, we're actually including, I
think that's be consistent.
And then if they increase the 21 cents at any point, we would just follow suit with whatever they.
Oh, and we should always by reference,
Yes.
always, yeah.
So that's, so there's, I guess, a little bit of multiple things here play. There's what's before the board to approve in the board packet. And then there's this additive consideration that was discussed during all staff meeting this morning that we, on reflection, recognize would be a thing to address. Because we're at this point, there could be an opportunity to sort of save the effort, but if the board feels that what would be a better approach is to revisit this in future time, we can, but that was a decision that I didn't want to make myself and allow the board to consider those potentials.
But with because the motion second, consider amending their motion to include reference employee handbook, consistent with GSA.
Yeah, I'll second, yeah.
Oh, I was the motion maker? Oh, I certainly moved to amend or I guess I will just do a friendly amendment to amending section 4.3 to add the language that Travis stated. I'm not gonna restate it.
And I
think we're all
quoted
clear.
in the minutes.
I think we're all
Yeah.
clear on what that
Yes.
was.
Yeah, I'll second that.
Okay. So the original motion's been amended to reflect reference to GSA reimbursement on personal vehicle usage. Are there any other questions, discussions?
Yeah, Travis, like we spoke yesterday, I think it'd be worthwhile, and I'm sending you this, but CIS has a sample employment handbook. And it also has a summary of most current required changes to comply with ORS. So I would think it would be worthwhile just to bounce it off what you already have. And they have some contact info there. I can't remember the woman who helped me in 2021, but they
Is it
can-
adding a cover sheet with the list of changes? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I think that's a grand idea of having a CIS as a resource to us, which it would be a free resource that we're already engaged with and can utilize to reflect on changes from the state level, how our handbook can appropriately reflect those changes.
and they'd be the one that you'd have to turn to if you had an issue with
Yeah.
with an employee. So
But the time and money saving effort, so that contact will be
Yep.
appreciated.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for question, all in favor of amending the current employee handbook, say aye.
I
All opposed? And our online, Dylan and Matt.
You see a thumbs
Aye.
up?
Okay.
Okay.
Great, thank you. All right. Moving on, DEQ legislative update, Travis.
Yeah, so context here. Let me put this up here. So LRAPA has a close relationship with the Oregon Department of Environmental Quality, which we very much appreciate. And considering we essentially do DEQ work, but in Lane County in a more focused way with our community and our industrial regulated sources. This is a relationship that we appreciate, and Christina and I met with Aaron Teberbon, who is DEQ's Senior Legislative Policy Analyst, to get a better understanding of what DEQ's forward-looking thoughts are going into the legislative session. This information here I did clear with DEQ for us to present here in this way, so we just want to make that known. One of the items to talk about is DEQ did ask LRAPA to work through an exercise that DEQ goes where they consider a potential 10% cut to the general fund. This is not to say that this is something that will happen or is imminent, but merely it's a directive that's provided by the state governor, and DEQ as an executive agency follows suit and provides that exercise. And so we were asked to participate in that. And our response to DEQ is that that cut in general funds would be very challenging to us as an organization. And the reason why we have this thing called, or this grant relationship called a maintenance of effort. So under Section 105 of the Clean Air Act, we have what's called a base grant, which is funding support that we get from the EPA because we exist as an air pollution control authority and we implement the Clean Air Act here in Lane County. And one of the ways that we have access to this federal funding is we have to show a maintenance of our effort, which is what is our funding source from state funding, from our local partners, which are here represented at the table, as well as through other sources such as our permitting fees, which are not Title V. And presuming that we can meet the mark of how much expense that we are spending each year, then we still have access to these dollars. And this is something we have to maintain and kind of increasingly grow each year by at least $1. And if we're unable to meet that mark, then we lose access to that federal funding. So DEQ's support is part of that leveraging of the maintenance of effort. So our response was describing this relationship more clearly to DEQ so it can be included to the governor and understood more fully. So that was one update to describe to the board. The next is more focused on our plan, and I want to have a conversation here with the board to see if there's any adjustments to this plan, is to engage with state legislatures in the fall, not from any long-term meeting perspective. The time would be very short and limited with each legislature, but more of a connecting and letting them know that LRAPA exists and who we are, and we're unique in the fact that we're the only local air regulator. And so the more understanding that our state legislatures have of us as a governing body, I think will be beneficial to us in future advocacy or opportunities for funding support to LRAPA. And then the final point here, option 3, these are DEQ's policy option packages plans that they intend to bring to the state legislature for the long session. The first is DEQ will be seeking an ACDP fee increase of 20% and a GHG reporting fee increase. That's either going to adjust the cap on GHG increases or change the sort of outreach or who kind of qualifies for needing to pay into the GHG funding support. And then the final item that they will bring to the state legislature is seeking for 3 FTEs for the Cleaner Air Oregon program, which DEQ implements and then LRAPA implements here in Lake County. So that's a bit of an information share and dump on some of our conversations and insights gained from our relationship with DEQ that I wanted to, as an informational item to share with the board.
Chair?
Mike,
Yeah, go.
Oh, thanks. I will say, back when, you know, all of the partners had to reduce their funding, we did request and receive an exception, you know, for that
maintenance of
reduction in
effort.
maintenance of effort. So that is a possibility, but doesn't DEQ also have the same expectation? I assume they have the same grants that we're talking about. So, I mean, I would assume that they're under the same situation we are.
There, and maybe you'll have a little bit more speak understanding of this, but DEQ, because they also implement water regulation, changes their grant structure. And so they do not have a base 105 grant. They have a PPA, a performance partnership agreement, at which they do have MOE requirements, and I don't understand
But it's-
the nuance.
It's like a drop in the bucket compared to our MOE percentage. It would take the heavens and earth to move for them to fail their MOE because it's so low.
Yeah. And the other piece of this, I'm gonna echo Joe Pishneri here on the fees. I worry because I don't know that our, you know, ACDP, I guess I don't know where we're at there. It doesn't seem like we've had the challenge we did in Title V. And I guess I don't know if we've researched this or not, but I would love to set like a balance cap where after that, we're actually reimbursing our, you know, fee payers, you know, a percentage to keep us, you know, solvent, but not, you know, gouging where we're just building reserves, you know, on the backs of folks who are paying these permit fees. So I don't know the legal, I know we talked about looking into whether that's legal to do. I really think that's just the fairest way to do it. That way we're making sure we have the monies we need to operate, but we're also being respectful to our permittees that we're not, you know, trying to make revenue on their backs.
Right?
Yeah, I would just, on the engagement with the local legislators, I think it'd be nice, given the history before your time, that maybe you give us the board some talking points on what's going to kind of bound your conversation, just so we don't get.
Yeah.
But I would say that going through the exercise of the job description and having a clear understanding and meeting that expectation of the board sets policy and I implement the policy set by the board is a very important part of the collaborative structure that really kind of forms LRAPA. And I think that LRAPA's board is a real unique opportunity in the sense that I can't think of or know of any other governing body that has all of the stakeholder representation that is present on LRAPA's board. And because of that diversification, I think close communication and transparency on what that engagement with legislatures is important to make sure that those relationships are healthy.
Great.
And I would add that just based on previous experience, if DEQ requests the LRAPA director to testify before a legislative committee that you would consult with us beforehand. And if it's last minute, too bad. We still think, since it's a policy issue, that I think the board, as you know, needs to be engaged in that.
Yeah, that decision, I agree, should be rightfully made in a collaborative public space where the board is able to sit, consider, discuss, and then provide direction.
Appreciate that. Dylan or Matt, do you have any comments? Nope. Okay. Any other comments, discussion, questions on this item? Okay, thank you. That was very helpful. I appreciate you being proactive. That's very, very helpful. It's good for the agency to be engaged.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, director's report.
Yes, so the director's report, this is an item I'll kind of briefly go through, and if you do have questions as I go through it, please go ahead and stop me and shout out. But on the first page is just our description of the AQI stats over the last month, the month of May, which we saw green across the board. As a quick note, outdoor burning season is still open. Our rule, LRAPA rule, closes outdoor burning season on June 15th. Recent connection with ODF and the Lane County Fire Defense Board, who have the ability to close it early on fire risk considerations, have made no indication that they plan to do so. So it looks like open burning will stay open until June 15th, at which point it'll close by rule. To a preference that was requested by Mike Fleck, we have more information included in the director's report that gets into open enforcement action and statuses. Notably, something that is new is an enforcement action over the month of May against A&K Development. Essentially, they failed to notify us that they were constructing a new stationary source. And so we're addressing that issue and taking action on that. And the rest are all pending or old cases that have been open or are ongoing. If there's any questions there, I'm happy to talk over on that. The outdoor burn letter permit program, which is if someone wants to do an outdoor burn, but it's bigger than an outdoor burn, or what they want to burn is not appropriate for just yarding materials, there is flexibility in our rules and regulations to do that burning, but they have to fill out an outdoor burning letter permit. So that was one permit that we did issue in May to do some larger land clearing. For asbestos notifications, there's some statistics on there on the asbestos abatement notifications that we have received over the last year for 2024. For our permits, we have our 13 Title V sources, about 275 air contaminant discharge permits, and the table below that talks about some of the activity that is going on in terms of new permits, renewals, modifications, etc. We have placed a number of permits on public notice over the last month, notably Pacific Recycling. In May, we held a public hearing for Seneca Sawmill Company for their ACDP modification. Permit backlog, which I mentioned, is low for us, and I think that that is something that is commendable to our operations section, Max, who runs that section, and the staff within it. At the moment, we are down a permit writer, but we are in the hiring process to bring someone on board for that. The next section here is more of a narrative of some of our media interest, external coordination and outreach. There's the media log for the year. A number of things that we've been working on over the month of May is early May was Air Quality Awareness Week, which is a social media campaign to promote awareness on air quality. LRAPA is also formally connected with the planners for the Pacific Northwest International section of the Air and Waste Management Association. PennWest, as it's called, will actually be in Eugene at the Graduate Hotel this year. So because it's in our backyard, I felt we should be more connected and in line and participatory in this whole event and have more of a presence there. So that's starting to ramp up to see us having a showing there. Describing our public hearing on Seneca Sawmill Company's ACDP in Title V. We also, myself, Max, and Jonathan Wright went to the Oregon Quality Commission, which is essentially DEQ's version of their board, to move through the rulemaking processes that the board approved a number of months ago earlier this year. So whenever we have a rulemaking generally, depending on the rules, we bring that to the Oregon EQC for them adopted. Some of the rules that are connected or a part of the Oregon State implementation plan gets forwarded on to the EPA, and the EQC also has to approve that forwarding onto the EPA. So we gave presentations and they were appreciative of the information and they have approved of those. And then finally, I presented to the Eugene Rotary Club in May at the Graduate Hotel, which had a good showing. I was actually really impressed with the number of engaged individuals at the Rotary Club. I show up to those somewhat often as I get invited, and it seems like more and more of those meeting groups are getting a little bit smaller, but they had a good showing, which I thought was great. And then the agency goals and updates. These are all of the goals that are at the moment still in reflection and review, and I hope in September to bring a new list of agency goals before the board to look at and consider. But then just some kind of topic by topic, some recent efforts over the month of May in our efforts to reach those goals that were set by the board. And then the final bit of it is in July, or is an outlook of some upcoming meetings and board items for us to look at as we look into the future. And my final item or note that I want to bring up is Max Huffley will celebrated 25 years here with the organization, and so wants to make note of that commitment and time and and that's the director's report. If there's any questions or
I have a question. Could you provide an update on the replacement of your prior position?
Yes, so I looked at the job description of the public affairs manager, which was the title that I had. And I reflected on my experience coming to LRAPA in that role, which when I first applied for the role, I envisioned lots of school visits, lots of social media campaigns, lots of newsletter writing and crafting, and it turned much more into somewhat of an oddly a chief of staff position in a helping to keep lots of things moving. And after that reflection, the public affairs manager position has been changed in title to public affairs and project manager to account for some of that support, which is just more of a helping to make sure that work and activities are being done. We posted, that job posting was made open at the end of May. The first screening of applicants is June 28th. We have had a number of applicants apply, a couple who I am pretty excited about. So once that window closes, we'll do our review more formally against a rubric, and then we'll schedule some interviews and start that. And another note as well on the hiring process is we did have an inspector position that was open for a while, and that position has been filled. And Mandy Ramirez, who is over here, she is an air quality specialist here, our inspector field officer. Her first day was on Monday. So I asked if she could sit in on the board meeting just to get a sense of this, as well as an opportunity to introduce her.
Scare her away.
Well, welcome and glad to see you're on board.
Thank you.
And Joe's not here, so you're lucky.
That's
We'll strike that from the record. Awesome. Thanks. Any questions? Thank you. Appreciate the significance of the report. Is there anything else before we adjourn? Because I promised Commissioner Lovell that we'd be an hour or so.
I'm aghast
I
at
work
your
at it.
efficiency.
You owe me.
So one quick question, there was talk about work session, was it in August? Or something where we would have a meeting in August? And
September, we decided we were not.
Oh,
gonna
good, I'm
meet
gonna
in
say I'm
August
out of
because
town. Yeah.
Several, we're gonna be out, so.
Yeah.
And if I can ask for some clarification too on that. So my understanding, and if I need to improve my understanding, this would be helpful. My approach on that is the Citizen Advisory Committee is going to, their process, sort of looking through the current goals. I sort of prime them with some questions of reflection on those goals, so we can have a good discussion and start to come to terms of what some new goal recommendations can be. And then taking that, and then internally as staff, we are looking to propose some goals to the board in September. And then whatever the discussion or approval, or let's set a work session, or let's engage farther, I leave that up to the board to provide direction there. But I plan to in September bring a set of goals, proposed goals to the board for consideration.
Sounds great.
And solicit the board members too on, you know, what their vision is as far as goals. Sooner than later. Okay, sounds like a good plan to me.
A good snappy meeting.
Okay, anything else? Well, it's about 1:15, so we'll stand adjourned. Thank you, Matt and Dylan, for joining us virtually. And we stand adjourned.
You, and Howard, if you could.
Everybody.
John, Howard.